Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Music of the Week. As always, we have 6 albums to go through, so I'm going to go through the 6 albums. We begin with Between the Buried and Me and their new album, The Blue Nowhere, and I think it's because, well actually I'm not entirely sure why, but I get this band's name confused with Bleed From Within, a Scottish metalcore band. This is a American sort of proggy metalcore sort of band, and then, slight on crack there, fuck it, keeping it in. I'm giving this one a B+. I've seen actually quite a fair bit of hate for this one, and I keep thinking that this is a band I listen to because I think I heard their last album Colours too, but I think I was going to get around to it because it was like the second part of like a narrative thing, but then it just didn't bother. But I quite enjoyed this one, more than most people seem to at least. Well, let's go with the instrumentation, which I quite liked. There's a really good prog rock feel, and even though this band is usually more prog metalcore, this is probably the most rock-leaning album. I say that even though this was my first album by them, but I like the sort of more rock and funk-based lean here. Excuse my hair. I didn't tie as much back as I thought I did. Yeah, I like that part. Lyrics, not so much. I guess, it is a problem with prog bands sometimes, and these guys couldn't really avoid the prog trappings of just penning weird and chaotic and stream of consciousness bollock nonsense when it comes to the lyricism. It's not completely terrible, but it's a problem I will never not have with the style. I also quite like the band work. I feel like everyone does a really good job. I will highlight guitarist, lead guitarist specifically Paul Wagner, but again, everyone here is prop good. I quite like the production as well, handled by the band. Okay, I was just trying to find that for myself. Yeah, handled by the band, and it's got a really good and clean feel to it. It does feel a bit overly clean in terms of its presentation at times, but I like it for what it was. I also quite enjoy the structuring. There's a good style mix, but I did want a bit less whiplash, and also for things to get to the point quicker, because this is the longest album of this video at 1 hour 11 minutes and 20 seconds, and believe it or not, it's not the only album in this video that I'll be covering that is around an hour. Oh no. So I couldn't really listen back to this one too many times. I think I got to only spin this one once because, I have 5 other albums to get to, and also it's a fucking hour long, but I did still ultimately quite enjoyed it. I feel like it's got a lot of really good positives to it, and a lot of people didn't really enjoy this one, but I did for my first album by this band who are 25 years in. I will say this probably wasn't the best jumping point for me to get into them, but I liked it quite enough, and I felt like I had enough good stuff going for it. And then we go from one band's 11th album to another band's 11th album. This is Dance Gavin Dance with their new album Pantheon, and a lot of changes obviously preceded this one. This is the first one with new clean vocalist Andrew Wells, and the first one without a bassist. I think they had maybe like a session bassist, and they have a touring one, but this is their first one since he passed away as well. Tim Feerick was his name. I'm giving this one an A though. I quite liked a lot of the aspects of this one. It feels weird that this is the longest gap between DGD albums, because the first one 3 years after all the Tillian stuff. So, I'm not going to go too into that because I don't want it, to be honest. But I will go into DGD as they stand now, and I quite like how well everyone works together. Will Swan's still really good at what he does. John Mess is still a really good screaming vocalist, but Andrew Wells, he's just got buckets of charisma, and I feel like he fits this band better than he fits Idler. Is that just me? I feel like DGD is a comparatively less serious band, so I think Andrew's allowed to have a bit more fun. But I don't know, maybe that's just me. I like the production. It's really organic, and it makes the sound pop quite nicely. Handled by Chris Crummett, who's worked with the band many times before, and Stefan Hawks, not Stephen Hawks, Stefan Hawks. Very important to get that correctly. But yeah, really good mix there, and it makes things blend quite nicely. I also kind of like the lyrics. That is the typical weirdness, and there's a bit more of an emotional lilt revolving around the theme of struggle as a main one, but I really kind of wanted a tribute song to Tim at the very least. It feels a bit sad that we didn't get one. From what I was able to look up, we didn't really get one about him, and I don't think they had the time to write one for the last album because he died, I think, after recording was over for that one. So they couldn't really do much with that. They might have been able to squeeze it in, I don't remember if they did. But I don't know, I feel like it was a missed opportunity at the very least. I like the instrumentation as well. There's more of a working in of emo and alt-rock influences, and even a bit of soul and some slight jazzy flavourings, and holy shit, that guitar work is great. I think this might be Will Swan's best guitar work from the Dance Gavin Dance albums I've listened to, and I quite like the structuring as well. I did want some more songs to feel fleshed out and just have a better flow overall from song to song. With 13 songs, they probably could have done it, but There's a good style blend, and the dynamics are still a lot of fun to listen to, and the band are just overall still a lot of fun to listen to. I think they'll be able to move on quite well without Tillian around. And yeah, Andrew is filling the shoes quite well, if you ask me, so I'm looking forward to their next one with him, because I think this one was a really good start with him as their new clean singer. Next we have a band called Liquid Mike with their 6th album, Hell is an Airport. Now, this might surprise you about them. This is not a band that's been around long. They formed in 2020. They put out 2 albums in 2021. Fucking hell, that is quite the output. I'm giving this one a B+, though. I quite bloody enjoy this one. This was a sort of power pop / pop punk leaning jobby doodah. It was produced by the band's frontman Mike Maple, and 14 songs with 27 minutes and 14 seconds, so not a very long album. In fact, the shortest album in this entire video, and the only one to be less than half an hour. I will go over lyrics first because they go over the not so relatable topic of burnout. I can't say I know what that feels like at all, and you know, just feeling us in a loop, doing not a lot with your life. You know, he's can't relate. But there's an honesty to the writing there as well, and I quite like the production too. It's got this really fresh feel, and it's quite clean, and it's very clear that Mike knows what he's doing with the mix. I think he might produce their other albums. I didn't really look much into that, but yeah, you know, he does a really good job. I also did enjoy the structure, however I did want a few songs to maybe be a bit longer, but it's got a lot of fun energy for a short album. The instrumentation is quite good too, there's a really good style, and I just really like the crunch on the guitar, you know, there's really good crunch on the guitar and really good crunch on the bass, and there's some good keyboard. This is a band that uses keyboard work, which I think is a good thing. And also I quite like the band, they all work really well together, there's really good camaraderie between them, and they just come off as really charming and really honest. So yeah, really good stuff from them. Just overall a really fun album. I'd recommend it. And this is about still early into their career, which is really fucking weird to say. If I had like a comparison band I could draw it to, probably Origami Angel would be like my biggest stand. So if you like Origami Angel, you might like these guys, because they have a sort of similar vibe, I would say. So and I like Origami Angel, so I liked more than enough of this one. Next is, I would say, probably the biggest album I'm covering in this video, and it is Lorna Shore with their 5th album, I Feel the Ever Black Festering Within Me. And I don't know what I can say about this one, except for an A+. I'm in the minority on this one. I read some reviews on this. I liked this more than I liked Pain Remains. And I really liked Pain Remains, but I think this one is just that next elevation for them. First of all, it's not a concept album like their last one was, but it does revolve around an interesting lyrical theme, which is the theme of dementia, because Will Ramos, I believe he wrote the lyrics for this album, and his family has a history of dementia, and the fact that it's like an inevitability for him, and considering that one of my biggest fears is the fear of inevitability, yeah, the lyricism really fucking got to me in this case, and you don't really expect symphonic blackened death metal, deathcore to have interesting lyrics, but yeah, no, this album does have those, but also an undercurrent of like perseverance and hope, making this a weirdly positive album for the genre. And the performances are great as well. Will Ramos, he will never get enough flowers for how fucking good he is. It's weird that a deathcore vocalist has all the charisma that he has to be able to project his voice as well as he does, but like he's a fucking demon given human form, and ironically also one of the sweetest fucking people on the planet. People love Will Ramos. I love Will Ramos. I just really want to meet him one day. He seems like one of the coolest people fucking ever. Instrumentation is great too. Really great guitar work, and it's still a Fury style mix, but I like the more melodic focus, and there's a power metal slight vibe on some songs, I will say. I was hearing a little bit of Dragon Force like influence here and there, and I'm not mad about it. I actually like that it felt a bit lighter on its feet than the last one did. I also quite like the structuring as well. For an album that's 1 hour 6 minutes 27 seconds long, you would think it would feel longer, especially considering it's only got 10 songs on it, but it doesn't really feel that way, and it fills it with all this like really good energy and all these good mood and tone changes that really help, and production also great, handled by Josh Schroeder and the band's guitarist Adam D'Amico. D'Amico? Adam. But yeah, really great stuff from them as well, and Josh Schroeder, I mean, he's, I would dare say one of the best like modern like core producers when it comes to like metal, and yeah, brings out a lot of really good organic polish with this album, bolsters the sound when it really matters. I mean, for fuck's sake, Lorna Shore are a band that are getting all of this like press and attention for a reason, because they're really bloody good. And I would say that the Will Ramos era might be the best era that they've ever been in. So, yeah. I don't really know what to say. I think Lone Show might actually be the best deathcore band going right now, and I think this album might be another great example of that. So go and give this one a spin. Next up, we have the only English band I'm covering today, as all the other ones are from Stinky Stars and Stripes America. I'm mostly sort of maybe not kidding. They did Shame with their new album, their fourth album titled Cutthroat, and give this one an A-. I quite like the lyrics. There's a really good theme of cowardice and greed and the lengths that people will go to stab others just to get a gain in life, but I will admit the writing feels a bit too happy. At times I feel like it's a bit too jovial at some points, but maybe that's just fitting the certain sound, I don't know. But I quite like the production, handled by John Congleton, who is really good at producing stuff. I will say maybe post stuff is not his forte, but he does a really good job here. It's got this really good fluid feel, and it's nicely layered with subtle touches, and I think John is underrated when it comes to production subtlety. I quite like the performances as well. I will highlight drummer Charlie Forbes, as I think he's probably the best member here, but everyone's still a lot of fun to listen to. I quite like the vocals as well, by Charlie Steen, I believe his name is. I also quite like the structure. It's got a really good mix of things, even if it can take a bit of getting used to, but it does have a good flow, especially in the second half of the album. And also I quite like the instrumentation. There's solid guitar work and really good bass, and it's just got this really solidly formed post-punk sound. And I will admit though, I feel like as a post-punk album it doesn't sound too outside of the ordinary, especially for this band, but I still found it to be a really fun listen to go through, and yeah, probably maybe their best one since Drunk Tank Pink, although since that was my first Shame album, I've got a bit of a connection to it, and I still think that's their best one, but I still quite enjoyed enough of the elements of this one. And if you like Shame, and if you like their post-punk sound, you'll probably like this one. And finally, we have Starset with their fifth album, Silos. So this is their first one in 4 years, and the reason for that is a bit weird. I'll get to the grade, which is a B+. I think this is a really well-crafted album from them. This is a band who's... I think this is the only band in this video's entire back catalogue I've listened to. And, yeah, I will say that they're still far away from Vessels. I still think that's their best album, but there's still some really good stuff on here. I will get the weird fact out of the way, though. So, this was meant to be an EP, and the band released a bunch of singles from 2024 to 2025. As a result of that, there's a lot of, like, musician guests on some albums. There's, like, guest vocalists, sorry, on some songs, and there's guest vocalists as well. And guest producers, the main producer of this one is Joe Rickard, and also the band's lead singer Justin Bates was, I think, exec producer for this one. But yeah, it's kind of a weird match of styles, and yet somehow it manages to make everything work. Let's start with their instrumentation. I feel like this is some of their heaviest work since their debut, and there's more spacey and proggy elements that are a staple of their sound, but they're a bit more prominent here, which I actually quite appreciate. Lyrics I also quite enjoyed. I am a bit confused if those are meant to be a concept, though, because of what I went through earlier. I feel like maybe that wasn't intended to be a concept, but there's enough like cinematic addings, which were addings isn't a word, but fuck it, that Dustin Bates put in to flesh the album out, which makes sense, but also kind of hurts the structuring because there's a lot of interlude songs, which I think indicate it was supposed to be a concept album, but there's not really a strong enough like core or context to make it a concept album. Also, in terms of structuring, I feel like the middle is a bit weak, and again, way too many interlude tracks, and I understand why, because I just went through why, because they basically had to stick a lot of this together from superglue and duct tape, but for the most part it does manage to work. I will say that the band performances are fucking great, and Dustin is still a really good vocalist, and I like that he throws in some more screams for the first time in a while, which is quite nice, and I miss those. I also quite like the production, even though it had technically like a shitload of people working on it. It's got this organic feel and bleeds in well to the sound, making the set sound feel pretty huge in places and boosting it quite well. And again, besides the weird problems that went into this one, it had a lot to juggle, and I feel like for the most part it manages to keep things afloat. However, next time just make an actual album, and don't try and make a bunch of songs and just pad them out. I mean, not every band needs to go on what I like to call the popular monster of just releasing a bunch of songs and then, like, putting out an album long after those songs have had their enjoyment sell-by date. Although, I never enjoyed Falling in Reverse anyway, but tish, so, yeah, maybe don't do that, Starset. You're much better than Falling in Reverse. Don't try and pull the shit again. Although, the fact that you managed to get away with it kind of shocks me. Next is favourite album cover and favourite song. Favourite cover is difficult, as we did have some good ones, but I'd have to go with Cutthroat by Shame. I just like how it looks. It reminds me, you know, it's just got this, like, really nostalgic feel, which I quite enjoy. Favourite song definitely goes to Forevermore from I Feel the Ever Black Festering Within Me by Lorna Shore, a great closing song at damn near 10 minutes, and not a moment wasted. And further proof that Lorna Shore are just like mechanically mad geniuses when it comes to deathcore. I fucking love them so much. And next is my listening list for next week, so in order we have Cardiacs with LSD, Dead with Resent, I Prevail with Violent Nature, Motion City Soundtrack with The Same Old Wasted Wonderful World, Paradise Lost with Ascension, and Wednesday with Bleeds. And that'll do it. I'll see you all tomorrow for the pay-per-view Reverence, and then on Saturday for more streaming. My newest Let's Play, which is Citizen Sleeper. I quite enjoyed the last session, and I'm definitely gonna mix things up a little bit. I've got a surprise coming that I haven't sussed out yet. I should be able to get it sussed out by tomorrow. But I'll see you all for those eventually, I hope, and as always... Ow! Oh, tied my hair too tight. Thank you for watching, you're awesome. Bye bye.